On the edge of a wasteland stands an old house. No one lives in it, it's bypassed. No teenagers, no local drunkards or homeless people would ever willingly enter the house. Not a single thing has been stolen or taken from it in the time it's been empty. The place has a bad reputation. Even the birds don't fly close to the house and the animals avoid it. Suddenly 2 people appeared at the edge of the wasteland, followed by a third, limping, who came out. 2 men and a woman. The weather was rapidly deteriorating. A fine, nasty cold rain was falling. They exhaled with relief when they saw the house. All 3 of them stopped in front of the house, not noticing that they were also being looked at, and not in a kind way. "Make yourselves at home," the scarred man said as he opened the oak door with a lockpick. "Nice hut," said the second man loudly. "And how do you like the beauty?" He turned to the girl. The girl, dressed lightly enough for such weather, looked at him fearfully. Olesya, that was the girl's name, looked at her captors in silent horror. She had been returning from her studies last night when, in a deserted passage, 2 men had approached her and slid into the car. She had been kidnapped. She was scared out of her wits at first, then tried to convey to them that they had kidnapped the wrong person. Her family doesn't have enough money for a ransom, they don't even have enough money for ordinary things. She went to college as a kid from a large family. They need another girl, her namesake, but no one listened to her. They gave her a couple of slaps. When the first shock disappeared, Olesya became terribly apathetic. She realized that she would be killed, and she had so many plans. The cherished dream of the girl was a good apartment and a full refrigerator of food so that her sisters and brothers did not starve. She was the eldest, responsible for them. And now she's gone. Snooley and Mityai, as the kidnappers were called, didn't bother to choose a victim. They got a tip-off about a girl whose father was rich, but she had a lot of attitude, so he put her in a technical school. He punished the daughter to the fullest, even had no security, and took the car. The girl seemed to them a great way to make a quick buck, especially not for the first time. And this house Snooley noticed long ago, when with a friend went to the swamp to hunt. Olesya was put on the couch. Snooley quickly examined the house and was satisfied. No one has lived in the house for a long time. It was strange, of course, that for so many years the house had not been robbed and not taken away everything. No cameras or security. "I don't feel comfortable here," said Mityai, settling down in his armchair. "The atmosphere is ominous. Watch the girl and all his sadness." "He's right," said a voice behind him. "Who else are you?" the men asked in unison. A big man in camouflage stood in the doorway. "A local. I was passing by and I saw someone had moved in." "Yeah, we're looking for a house." "We're looking to buy," Snooley answered kindly. "What's wrong with you? You people are brave. What do you mean? Didn't you hear the story? I'm Ivan, by the way." What's the story?" The story of the tragedy in the house. 20 years ago, a large family lived here farming. Now it's a wasteland and nothing's left, but back then, it was a thriving place. In addition to the family, farm helpers lived on the territory. The father, Alexander, inherited the house with a plot of land from a distant relative. He had seen his aunt twice in his life and remembered her poorly, so he was very surprised by her gift. His wife, Galina, a simple pretty woman, fully devoted herself to her family and home. Galia gave birth to 5 children, in which the soul did not want. Her parents were well-to-do people, helped a lot with money until the farm began to bring income. One evening there was a knock at their door. At the door stood a man and a woman, married, asking for a phone or help. Their alternator belt had broken in their car and their cell phone was dead. They were offered both shelter and help. In the morning the car was fixed. The couple thanked their hospitable hosts and as a small gift gave their youngest daughter a doll. It was an ordinary rag doll that looked a little shabby and creepy, but the girl liked it. Little Margot was never parted from her doll for a minute. She slept, ate, walked everywhere with the doll. Margarita was the youngest daughter and the only girl, so she was allowed a lot of things. At first her parents did not pay attention to her daughter's oddities, but then disaster struck. Margot's 4 brothers often helped their father and the workers on the farm. The eldest Ivan, followed by Maxim, they are yearlings. Ilya and Danil are twins. The difference with Vanya is decent. The boys turned 7 that year and went to school. The boys loved tinkering with animals, knew how to feed and care for them. They were not afraid of the farm animals. Galina was tending to the kitchen that day. It was getting close to dinner time. Daniel was helping her, and his mother sent him to call his father and the others for lunch. Mom, Dad, Vanya, and Max are coming, but I don't know where Margot and Ilya are. I haven't found them. Daniel ran into the kitchen and told Galina. The family sat down to dinner without the two children, deciding that when they were hungry, they would come themselves. After dinner, the mother sent the older son to find the younger ones and send them home. The scream she heard a few minutes later, the woman could not forget. When she ran to the backyard, Alexander was already there. Galya didn't even realize what was going on at first. Margot stood idly against the wall of the barn, cradling a doll. A wooden ladder was leaned against the wall with Ilya lying at the foot of it. "My son! Ilyusha!" Galya rushed to him, but her husband stopped her. Then she understood everything. Grief severely undermined Galina. She withdrew into herself, slept badly, and almost did not eat. The woman withdrew into herself. Probably it was easier for her to cope with the pain. A little over a month after Ilya's death, Maxim died. The boy had fallen into the well and drowned. Why he had opened the lid and bent over was a mystery because there was a pump and no need for a bucket. Anyway, the boy died. Dad, it was her. One day the eldest Ivan turned to his father. "Who?" The man didn't understand. "Margot." The boy was obviously scared. "Don't talk badly about your sister. He's right, something's going on," the eldest son spoke up. "And the mother is going crazy. You can see that." The situation escalated, and the house became tensely quiet. It all came to an end one night. Margot came to her mother and whispered to her for a long time, then kissed her and left. The girl went to her father and quietly said something. This is what Ivan saw before the tragedy. Alexander waited until everyone had gone to bed, took a shotgun, and went to his youngest son. A shot. Silence. The wife was next. A scream. A shot. Silence. Afterward, he went to his youngest daughter's room. A worker who lived in the house heard the shots and called the police. He did not dare to go out himself and waited for the police to arrive. The police were shocked by what they saw. The only thing that did not give everyone peace for a long time was the disappearance of the girl and her older brother. The father of the family committed suicide. The investigation went quite a long time and decided that the crazy father drowned in the swamp, daughter and son. From this version of the white thread sticking out in all directions, but this conclusion was not reached on an empty place. On the way to the swamp found drops of blood of the eldest son and on the shore of the doll Margot. The case was closed for the death of the accused. Over the years, the place grew with gossip and rumors, one worse than the other. The buildings were torn down, but the house itself was never touched. "So what?" the man with the scar asked. "So they're still here? Who?" The other man didn't understand. "The ghosts of the family and the girl. Though it's not really what it seems." "Man, you're crazy," Snively grinned. The man did look strange, excited, and scared, and it wasn't the two fugitives that scared him. "You don't understand. Today's the day she always comes, and here you are, just like on demand," he laughed nastily. "She's gonna eat you. So you still have a chance to save yourself, but after sundown you're doomed." "Psycho! I'll give you a chance to escape in one piece." "Calm down, both of you," shouted Snooty. "Nobody's going anywhere. You, Mityai, look after the girl, and I'll take another look at the house. And you come with me." They left the room. Olesya and Mityai stayed in the room. The girl was sitting on the sofa, staring at one point and not reacting. She did so that she would not be carried away into the abyss of horror, so she abstracted herself from what was happening. It was like it wasn't happening to her. At this time, Snooty was going around the house once more and noticed that there was no dust, as if someone was cleaning. "What's your name again?" "Vanya," he answered calmly. "Vanya, Ivan, just like that master's son." Snooty chuckled. "He's in the swamp, isn't he?" "Uh-huh. You know, I don't believe you." "Why not? My gut." "That's weird." Snooty stretched out. The man was silent. He stared out of the window, where the sky had turned scarlet. The day was drawing towards evening. Ivan knew perfectly well what would happen next, but he felt sorry for the girl. He didn't feel sorry for Mitya and Snooty. "Get out of here while you can," Ivan suddenly said, looking stern. What did you say?" Confused? Snooty was furious. "I said get out while you can," Ivan hissed. He didn't have time to speak. Snooty knocked him down with a blow to the jaw. Ivan lost consciousness and fell to the floor. Snooty stepped over the man. At that moment there was a knock on the door. Snooty went down to the first floor and looked out the window next to the door. On the wide porch stood a young pretty girl. She was looking straight ahead, but the man thought she could see him. He didn't want to open the door. He thought he would stand there, knock and leave, but his hands were already unlocking the lock. "Good afternoon, may I come in?" the girl asked in a gentle voice. She was dressed in a skirt and sweater with boots on her feet and a bag in her hands, but no jacket or hat. Yes, Snooty couldn't believe he said it. It was as if he was not in control of himself, someone was controlling him. He was scared, probably for the first time in his life. The girl came smiling into the hallway and stopped. "Don't be afraid," she laughed. "It's late. Who are you? Where are you from?" Snooty could only say. "This is my house and you came without asking." The smile disappeared from the beautiful face. "What, is everyone in your neighborhood crazy?" He's regained his usual confidence. "Don't be rude to your guests." With these words, the girl walked into the house without turning around, as if she had forgotten about Snool. It was as if he was split in two, one half demanded to do terrible things to this beauty, and the other half wanted to worship and pray to her. In the largest room the girl was still sitting on the couch, and her overseer was sitting in a chair. "Where the devil have you been?" Mitya started to say, but saw the girl. "And who the hell are you?" "A guest," she answered simply. "And who are you?" "We live here," Mitya answered brazenly. Snooly stood at the door looking at his accomplice. He suddenly thought their scheme foolish. The guest sat down uninvited in another chair and froze, as if waiting for something. Meanwhile, it became dark outside the window. Mitya lit a kerosinka and put it on the table. There had been no electricity in the house for a long time, only by some miracle the well had survived. They brought water from there, by the way, even found firewood. It was getting colder outside. Snooly melted the fireplace and it got warmer. Olesya watched her captors and the girl. It was as if she were watching a play in which she also had a part, but she didn't know it. "It's going to be a languid evening." Mitya laughed nastily. "Shut up," Snooly besought him. "There are chicks, we can have fun, and then..." He rolled his eyes dreamily. "It's clear that nothing will come of our scheme." Maybe, Snooty mumbled, but he approached the guest. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Margot, what's yours?" "Snooty," the man answered stammeringly. She had a strange effect on him, as if he were falling into a trance. Charming. At that moment Ivan entered the room and stared dumbfounded at Margot. Olesya suddenly felt terror flooding her soul, and she also realized that no one would live to see the morning. Suddenly the old floor clock went. Everyone in the living room stared at the clock, and for some reason it made everyone uncomfortable. The clock went. Mitya smiled stupidly. The atmosphere was getting hotter, and he said, "By themselves." Indeed, it would soon be midnight. Margot grinned, looking at Ivan. "You guys have a lot of fun, but it will be even more interesting." The girl quickly walked up to Mitya and looking into his eyes, reached out her hand to his chest. For a few moments nothing happened. The silence seemed to spark with tension. "Who are you?" Margot nodded to Olesya. "Come on, don't be afraid." "I am." Olesya couldn't say a word out of fear. "Oh, come on!" Margot waved her hand. "I already know." "Yeah? What do you know?" Snooly frowned, going over the options in his mind. "What if they've been tracked down? You fools kidnapped the girl for money. Only her daddy ain't got no money. You kidnapped the wrong girl." "It's silly, of course," Margot sighed and sat down next to Olesya. "A simple surname implies namesakes. Both Ivanovs are OI, only this one is Olesya Igorevna, and that one is Olga Ivanovna. You morons got it mixed up." Margot laughed out loud. Only then Snooly noticed that she had no pupils. He wanted to be somewhere very far away, but not in this house. Ivan silently watched what was happening. He was not paying attention to him and forgot about his presence. "You know a lot, girl," Snooly barked. "Bomb, bomb, bomb!" The clock struck midnight. Margot stood up and slowly walked over to Mitya. "You've been misbehaving." With these words, she looked at Snooly. Snooly took the gun, pointed it at his accomplice and pulled the trigger. A deafening shot rang out. Mitya looked disbelievingly at his hands, stained red, and then at Snooly. Snooly stood as if in a stupor, as if not realizing what he had just done. When Mitya fell, Olesya couldn't stand it any longer and squealed, shaking with terror. Margot looked at her indifferently, as if she were furniture. "Honey, you're doing great." Margot patted Snuffy on the cheek. "You've got to go, we're waiting for you." Snooly, smiling stupidly, put the muzzle of the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Olesya screamed without ceasing, her reality just shattered into a million shards. Margot walked over to the girl, leaned over and sniffed. Shaking her head, she touched the top of Olesya's head. The girl suddenly became silent, sobbed and collapsed on the couch. "It's not her death, nor yours," Margot said without turning to Ivan. "I recognize you, brother." "You're nothing to me," he said. "A demon spawn. We have the same mother, so take it, and even I can't kill my brother." At that moment, the shadows bouncing on the walls and furniture suddenly began to stretch out. It was as if they were flowing into something eerie. The shadows engulfed Snooly and Mitya, and then the clots of darkness seemed to absorb into Margot. She stood with her arms outstretched as the darkness flowed into her. "Take the girl and go," Margot said to her brother in a muffled voice. Ivan took Olesya in his arms and left the house. The clock struck 4 in the morning, and it was still several hours before dawn. Ivan dragged the senseless girl to the camp, and there he tried to bring her to her senses. "Where am I? Are we alive?" muttered Olesya, opening her eyes. "You are in my temporary shelter," answered Ivan. "I'll tell you something. Then I'll lead you out of here to the road, so if something happens to me there will be someone who knows the truth. About Margot." Ivan's story. That there was something wrong with his sister, Ivan had always known, ever since she was born. She was strange, quiet, almost invisible. Margot often just watched everyone, doing it discreetly, and it made him uncomfortable. It was the way predators watch their would-be prey long and intently. One day he woke up in the night and saw his sister at his bedside. The girl just stood there looking at her brother, which scared him to death. When the brothers died, Margot was there. She saw everything, and Vanya did not see the girl's tears and regret. It alarmed him. Here adults are crying, and the girl saw how her brother died and calmly watches cartoons. "She's just a little girl who's in shock and doesn't understand," his mother told him when he shared it with her. "I don't think so. Maybe Margot should see a doctor. Don't make things up. There's nothing wrong with her," the mother rudely cut her son off. On October 31st, the day of the tragedy, he saw his sister visit his mother, then his father. Ivan was sure it was no longer his sister, but some entity in her body. After the massacre of his son and wife, his father went to Ivan's room, but the guy naturally did not wait for him and ran away. True, his escape was noticed by his father and managed to wound him, after Alexander, as if to forget about what he had done about the escaped son. Vanya heard the shot already at the swamp, and then she came there. Margot. The girl called out to him, crying, saying how scared she was. Then she laughed, danced, told him something, and the boy was hiding, trying not to breathe, not to move. Margot got bored, and she left, leaving the doll on the shore. The outcome of the story is known. Ivan and Margot were not found. It was believed that their father drowned them. A year later, on the same day, Margot came again. No one lived in the house at that time, but a watchman lived in the cottage. Since then, once a year she appeared, killed, and disappeared. Ivan managed to make his own documents, forged of course, and to settle down in life. He lived in the city, made good money, but had no family. He feared that Margot would find him and destroy him, as she had once destroyed his entire family. He had learned a lot during this time, only many questions he couldn't get answers to. Fate took him to the other side of the country, where chance brought him together with a local witch doctor, though everyone called her a witch. Ivan told her his story honestly, though after she herself named some facts from his life that no one knew. "She's not your sister, or rather not like that. You have the same mother, that's right, but different fathers. Your mother didn't know the truth until the end, then she realized. But it was too late," said the woman, looking into a basin of water. Ivan could only see the dark water in the basin. "Did you see it all there?" The man was surprised. "There. I've heard about such a child, it's scary. Your mother can be pitied, she was used in darkness, who I do not know. But she'll never rest, her soul is cursed. The girl's worse, she must be destroyed. But I don't think there's anyone brave enough to do it." "What is she? A child born of a living woman and a demon. Until a certain age the child doesn't know who she is, then the pastors show up. From that point on the child learns its true nature, manifests its abilities." "Did Margot really kill the brothers?" Ivan asked in genuine horror. "What do you think?" "Our former house is abandoned," I checked. "How to destroy her?" he asked then. "I'll tell you, but it's complicated, and remember, she's not your sister. Whatever humanity she had is long gone. I wonder if she survived." He didn't know Margot was coming to his old house. Of course she survived. The cult adherents not only took her in, but raised her, educated her. "Believe me, Margot has settled in well." "You know a lot," Ivan said slowly. "As it happens, you're not the first to come to me." "Alas, I can't help everyone, I can only tell you," replied the witch with a heavy sigh. "Margot is not the only one." After the witch explained how to destroy Margot, what to do in opposition to her, and after a while he left for his town. He made his first attempt to destroy Margot that same year. It didn't work, she just laughed at him, that's all. He's been watching home for years during the week through the end of October and beyond. This year, as usual, he had set up a mini camp at the edge of the woods by the marsh, where he had a good view of the house and lot. He saw a strange trio enter the house. This alarmed him. Who were these people? Well then, he decided to show up at the house. Olesya reached the highway at dawn. She sobbed, sitting on the side of the road with joy and fear. She was glad to be alive, sad for Ivan and his fate. Despite the early morning, there were many cars and soon stopped near her. The police and an ambulance were called. The police found that house. Olesya described it clearly and told about the tragedy that happened there many years ago. She was silent about Ivan. The remains of Snuli and Mitya were found in the house, but no one was bitter. There was too much blood on them. No trace of Margot had been found either, not a single print or DNA. It was as if she never existed. Olesya never saw Ivan again, tried not to remember those 24 hours spent in the company of criminals. Since then, the girl is very afraid of young girls of angelic appearance. She looks at every innocent face, afraid to see Margot again. Olesya hopes that sooner or later Ivan will be able to overpower Margot. A flock of birds swooped over the wasteland. The abandoned house, which was called the House of Death, still stands there, patiently waiting for new guests. Late October.